Coming up, full recap from the second best meet of the year. We got a blockbuster new theory that we're going to discuss for the first time ever on camera. It's been 50 years this week since one of the great barriers in middle distance running was broken by one of our very own. All next on the Track Stitch.
Riders bearing down on top of Ngudi. Ngudi digs deep and he's got no more. And Andrew Lloyd wins the second.
Récupéré ensuite chez lui au Maroc à Ifrane.
On a la Web, il est parti à la Web, il a tenté le coup du siècle là.
Oui,
surprendre tout le monde. Au 800.
Final of the men's 10,000 meters in 19.
Stop the ball out. Who it looks to be. Who else is in the race? The wave is there. The confidence is there.
All right, recording this. It's August the 16th, 9:30 p.m. out on the West Coast here. Shane Rody joining from Auckland, New Zealand. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Sunday afternoon, New Zealand time.
Awesome.
And I've been up. I got up. I tried to get up to watch Silesia, but it wasn't to be. Up at about 6:30 to watch it, and it's worth getting up. It was cool.
Yeah. So, hey, first of all, apologies to all the millions of fans out there. We were supposed to do this podcast yesterday until there was a monumental internet meltdown just after Kenny G and the Track Stitch band had finished playing the jingle. And I just dropped out and never came back. So we were actually going to do a preview show for the Diamond League meet Silesia, and now we're going to do basically what everybody else is doing, which is a recap show. But I promise we'll do it better, right? So we're going to do the recap of Silesia. We've got the blockbuster theory that's going to tack on to actually one of the races, and then John Walker, 50 years ago, I believe, on Tuesday, became the first man to run under 350 for the mile. We've maybe just got a few stories that we're going to talk about with Walker and the significance of him. So, should we get into it there?
It's rock and roll. How are we going to slice this?
Yeah. Hey, so one thing I did yesterday after we completely crapped out, or after I completely crapped out, I was so bummed out that we didn't get to do our predictions that I actually went ahead and I wrote down my predictions for what I thought would happen on a piece of paper.
Before and after.
Yeah, so basically I'm going to crack it open now and we'll see that. So these were written yesterday before the meet, and then we can actually see how they went relative to the actual results today. So these were my predictions from yesterday. I don't know if you can. Well, anyway, I'll just read them out.
Hold them up again.
What was that?
I'm interested myself. Hold them up again.
I don't know how well you can.
A bit further back.
Back.
Keely, yeah. Okay. Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Yeah. So I had the women's 3K. I had Kip Yegon at 8:08 high. Beatrice Gibet 3:54.4 in the 1500. The men's 15, I thought Myers was going to run a national record, and I thought that Josh Hoey was going to really challenge for the victory. I had Keely Hodgkinson 1:56.8 the 800. Clearly, that was really wrong. And in the 100, I had Thompson for the win, and I thought that Bednarik was going to beat Lyles. Should we just go into those key meets, those key events, and just chat about what we saw today?
One by one, should we hit it off with Faith? Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, just like a huge world record attempt here, trying to get rid of the last of the infamous turtle blood records from the book. What did you think?
Just as an aside on that, and as a bit of a prequel rant, I read on Let's Run today that, and I remembered thinking I'd seen this, but I wasn't sure that Wang Junxie, I assume that's how you pronounce her name, was apparently one of 16 athletes had written a letter complaining about Ma Yunren doping them. Why have the powers that be not wiped these records anyway? I mean, they seem like apocryphal records. Didn't they rip the stadium up afterwards as well, where those actual records were done? I mean, it's kind of preposterous. I mean, if they're going to take a hard line on things like the whole gender question and people like Caster, this is equally as outrageous, if that makes sense.
No, I think so. And also because it's like, fortunately, the 10K record is gone. I'm not sure if the 5K was ever broken at that meet. I know the 1500 definitely was.
The 5 was the weaker, but I remember Wang Junxie when she ran 29:31. I'm pretty sure she beat in the second half, ran quicker than the then woman's 5K record. Do you remember 5K wasn't an Olympic distance around then?
That's right.
It was still the 3, so
and
it was never.
Did Ingrid Christiansen hold the 5K record at that time?
I believe so. But it wasn't really a thing because obviously it wasn't an Olympic distance, so it was softer back then. Yeah.
No, I mean it's a good point, and I mean some of the details behind that 3,000 meters in particular are just wild. I mean it doesn't even align with, Junxie was the world record holder in the 10K and the 1500 from the same meet, and even I think
she was second in the 1500.
Oh, you're right.
A lady called,
You're right.
Another, is it Bo Junxie or something like that, or Kulian, who ran 350, and she ran 351.9.
You're right.
That race.
Yes, but the crazy thing is that the 3,000 meters, the equivalent performances that we would have expected based on that 351.9 and the 29:30 was about in the 8:10 to 8:11 range. Of course, she came out and ran 8:06.11, and there's a pretty crazy clip on the internet that just shows a little on YouTube that shows just a little bit of the race and her coming up the home straight, and as she crosses the finish line, they show the final kilometer split of 2:36.48 for the final K, which is sub 350 pace for 1,500 meters. So she went through, and just looking at Faith's splits from today, she was 2:41.4 for that final K. That's Faith Kipyegon, who's run 3:48.6. So I mean, just everything about that record is really bizarre. But yeah, I mean, today, obviously, just an incredible performance. 8:07.04. These are the splits. 2:42.8, 5:25.7 at 2K, and then 2:41.4 at the finish. Won by 27 seconds, so it was just obviously like a straight up exhibition event. I think for me, I don't know what you thought, but that was a really, really gutsy performance from Faith. I mean, obviously 8:07, it's incredible. It's challenging a record that's really, really bizarre and extremely dubious. But I thought that she didn't look very comfortable after 1,200 meters. I mean, and some people might say that's ridiculous. That's just what I saw. And actually, I thought with 2 laps to go that maybe she was going to really, really hurt, because it's typical for sort of
there was a 66 in there, wasn't there? I believe.
Yes, and it's really normal for, particularly when you're not experienced running the 3K as a more speed-based middle distance runner. That 1,000 meters from a mile to 2,600 is just really, really tough. And I think that was the one thing that was against her as well. It was the same thing that was against El Garouge when he went after Koeman's record, just like lack of practice at feeling that pain and learning how to push through it. From
what did Giselle run last year for the 2K world record?
5:19.7.
Okay, so it wasn't that far, like, considering she's leading.
And they did a really good job. I mean, I thought that was going to be tough for Hull to get that close to, to run 5:25. That's only 6 seconds off her world record. Some people might say, 6 seconds quite a lot, but in a pacing environment, it is much more difficult. And yeah, wave light does help a lot. But
I thought Hull looked really good. She did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, the whole meet was good. Oh, and I forgot to reference that as well. How good the meet was. It was the second best meet this year by point scoring. So, what World Athletics does is they basically add up all the point scoring from all of the events, so every single performance. And the Silesia meet comes in at 96,679 points. The only meet that was better was Prefontaine. So this was a better meet than even Monaco, which was a much heralded meet this year. So really, really great meet. So that was really all from the 3K. I mean, the big question is going to be, does she want to go for the world record again? Don't know. Yeah. Maybe not.
Maybe same meet next year.
Yeah, maybe.
Look, I agree with what you're saying though. Like there were times where it looked like the elastic was going to snap between her and Hull, and it was difficult for her. I mean, and that's what I'm saying about this whole. When you create a situation where you have an allegedly, and I'm happy to say it, I think enhanced, dubious record like that, you create an artificial level of pressure on, say, a Faith Kipyegon to be running to that level. It was a bit like that Breaking 4 project where you've created this artificiality to have the pace lights at, just off that, and she can come off her threshold and pick up a few seconds in those last few laps. But the pressure it would have put on her, whereas say she'd been targeting Chebet's 8:11, that's what I think we were seeing with the discomfort was the fact you know what it was like when we were athletes. It's just a bit more, and at that level, it's everything to be just a bit more past your comfort level in terms of how you're clicking off laps. So I think very, very difficult assignment. And just like with the sub-4 attempt, it was like monstrously impressive how she held it all together, because it's a really difficult record.
Yeah, and that was like part of my prediction was basically I looked at her 1,500 meter. I mean, I'll tell you one thing, man. These IAAF or the old IAAF Hungarian tables that they use for point scoring, I know that they're just they're not a etched in stone.
No, beyond end all.
Yeah, beyond any level of doubt sort of thing. But they're incredible in how like accurate they are, like given the context for these sorts of things, because basically what I did was I looked at her performance over 1,500 meters, which is about 1,300 points, and I looked at her performance over 5K. And I sort of even just rounded a little bit down because I think she's a little bit better than that 14:05, and she was sort of about 12:85 range. And so I thought, well, given that she's a little bit better over 1,500, I'll bias it slightly more towards that 1,300 point score. So I thought she'd come out somewhere in the low 1290s, and just to give you context, that 1290 points is 807.2, which is basically just what she ran. So, and that was the same thing that I did with Chebet in the 15. I know you're gonna touch on that race. Well, that's one of your key races to touch on in a second. But yeah, that's how I sort of came up. And then I thought, well, I just think it's going to be so difficult for her because she's never run like the 3K before, as we we're just saying. And then you enter into this world of like just different way to approach the event. She's run so many 15s, so many miles, not many 3s, and that's why I thought she'd sort of do very well to run just under 809, but 807 is just simply awesome. And that was a great run from her.
It was.
So yeah, man, the 1,500, which happened about 15 minutes after it was just one after another at this point. Yeah, I'll let you take the stage for that one. I'm just race all around.
Perplexed by how good Ipsega, whoever's advising you, maybe it's against orders, but I mean, I think you've got a potential women's 1,500 world record holder in Gerd Ipsega. I mean, man, she went through in 2 flat 0.4, and that's.
I think wasn't it even just under?
The paces were like 59.9. I read on Let's Run, and it was about 2 flat. I mean, 159.9, 2 flat. So
yeah,
that's what 3:45 pace, and I mean, she is. You got to give it to her. She is like hard as nails. Like the way even when she's rigging up, how tenacious she is. And I think that Jonathan Galt wrote about it on his blog, so I am plagiarizing his thoughts, but they were our exact thoughts before I even read Jonathan Galt's post, is that you've got someone who's capable, effectively running near world record speeds in the 1500, and she's obviously a former world record in the 5. Yet that's just it seems to me with all the implements like the wave light, well, it's really the wave light at the moment, and the way that the sort of modern understanding as a community has grown about how to attack these records, she continues to run sort of a la El Garouge in 1998. It's just absolute bloody puts the blowtorch down from the first lap. I don't know.
So,
So
here's a question then: why? Like, I think that's an interesting one.
She seemed, she had that slight skirmish with, was it Faith in the Olympics? She looks she kind of runs angry, and that maybe is part of what makes her great, is in the sense that she's tenacious. She's like got that take no shit attitude. She gets out there and she blows races apart, and maybe it's a combination of that, and she doesn't fancy her kick. Who knows? Maybe it's just a personality, like a broader personality, type of thing. But I don't think you and I are going to figure that out on this podcast. But it's super interesting and frustrating, as your mate Jonathan Galt said. It's interesting it's cool to watch. Like, it's wicked, but at the same time, it's like, whoa, like she absolutely could run 349.3 or 4. Could she get the record? Possibly, based off that.
Yeah.
I mean, so if Faith went out in her mile, right? What'd she run in her mile? 4:07?
Yeah, about that.
It's not really that dissimilar to Faith going out the way the speed she went out in her mile, really, is it?
Well, yeah. I mean, so as to the question of why she would do that, you mentioned a really good name, El Garouge, and it's an interesting one because I got a pretty cool story from Zurich back in 2002. It's the first time that I was ever privileged enough to go to that meet and run in it. And I remember that there was a massive chaotic moment that came in the technical meeting. My agent at the time told me about it because El Garouge's agent had gone in there and they'd requested 147.5 through 800 meters. And all the other agents were like, that's just ridiculous. That's crazy. They actually had to go and get the pacemaker. It was Bernard Kasilu and David Lele. They had to go and physically get the guys and ask them, can you run that fast? And anyway, what ended up happening is they agreed on 148.5. And then in the actual race, if you go back and watch it, they were through in 54.3. Kasilu was the first pacemaker, and then he dropped out, and Lele took them through, and it was like 150.1, and El Garouge ran 326.9, I think, something like that. He ran under 327. It was awesome. But I remember seeing David Lele afterwards, and I asked him about it. I'm like, what was the deal with that? It was crazy. And he told me that this happened. He said he wasn't worried because it happened all the time. What they would do is they would set up the race with this guise that it was going to be way, way faster than it always was. And then El Garouge would actually come up to him before the start of the races and say, just go out in 150. And I just wonder if maybe there's a little bit of that with Sige, where she's just like, we're going to set this pace up so quickly that nobody's going to bother to come with me. And actually, when you think about it, it's quite a smart thing to do, right? Because if, like, the rest of that field today, it was a really good quality field. None of those other women are like, we're going to get anywhere near you because it's suicidal. I mean, Kipyegon, when she broke the world record, went through in 2:03, right? So, and now you've got a woman saying, hey, we're going to take that out almost 20 plus meters up the track. And you saw, I just thought about today when I was watching it, the disruption to the race in general, right? Like Georgia Hunter-Bell, like none of those other women. And think about this, because she set the pace up so fast, there was essentially no other pacing for the rest of the pack.
No, exactly. They were basically running
they're screwed.
They might as well have been running in the BMC Milers Club.
Yeah, exactly. They're basically solo time trialing it. So, I mean, it's an interesting tactic. Here's a real quick one, then we can move on off this one. What do you think happens? What would happen in a Kipyegon Sige matchup? Because I'm guessing they would give like the pacing, I guess, green light to Kipyegon as the world record holder. But it'd be really interesting in those tech meetings if Sige's crew came in and goes, no, we want this to go out in 2 minutes. Like, who would they bow to and bend to? And what would actually happen? What would Kipyegon do if she was put in a race where Sige took it out in 2? Because what we're seeing with Kipyegon is that she's very, very measured. They've got a really good scientific approach, and I just couldn't see her ever wanting to go out that quick in a race. But that would be fascinating.
And conceivably, Sige would handle it better too, because she's just got that scruff of the neck. Like, she's so tough mentally. Yeah, it'd be super interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't get the world record, but I think she runs PR, one of the fastest times ever, and it's certainly incredibly entertaining to watch. Yeah. I think before we got 2 more events that I think of real interest to us, which was the women's 8 and the men's 15. And other stuff, Warholm runs really, really low, 46 in the 4 hurdles. I mean, he's coming back into form, and I just realized this, going back to the same track where he became the first guy to break 46 and, of course, win our infamous bet on your behalf. So he looked really good there. Kashane Thompson wins 100, and Noah takes care of Kenny Bednarek just a few days after Bednarek said he wouldn't lose to Noah again. Yeah, it didn't seem to be much drama after that one.
No.
Yeah.
Speaking of bets, girl Kelly Hodgkinson.
That's right. Great segue, Shane. Great segue. Yes.
154, what was it, 70 something? I haven't
75.
Seen it. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Any thoughts from your side on that performance? What do you think this means longer term for her? Yeah, I guess. We want to talk about the world record in the women's 800, but it just seems so far away. I think probably the next stepping stone really is to get a woman to run under 154.
Trevor Painter was quoted as saying that she can break the world record. Coaches are often pretty brilliant when it comes to their charges prospects. But
what do you think? Do you think she can?
No. I mean, do I now think she could break 154 after today? Maybe. If she's getting stronger, and that injury, they might have helped her have a bit of a mental pause. Wins her Olympic, long coveted Olympic gold, still young as, great running form, great people around her. Looks like a good family around her. I mean, why not?
It's crazy. It's crazy how sometimes those little adversity things, if you've got a really good team around you can actually flip them in a positive way. Yeah, I mean, the world record is just, even if she was to run under 154, that world record just seems so far away at 153.28. That's still even a second and a half faster than what she ran today.
Sneeze. Yeah, I mean, another tainted record though, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, if you remember a few years ago, I think the Swedish Federation, they wanted to petition the IAAF at the time to just absolutely to wipe the slate clean. But I mean, obviously that's completely impossible.
It's impossible.
So, I mean, obviously that race wasn't on the telecast, which sucked for some reason. That was really annoying. And also, by the way, how were the cutouts to like the men's pole vault? No disrespect to the men's pole vaulters during like the 3K record. That was just
it was abysmal. I just kept fast forwarding it, and then you get glimpses and they'll be back to it. It's like torture.
I was watching it live, and God, it was frustrating. I was like, what are you doing? Like, anyway, I will tell you this, man. I just saw the 800 before I watched it. This might come across as hyperbolic, but I'm telling you, Kelly Hodgkinson executes the 800 meters the best of any woman 800 meter runner I've ever seen, and as good as any of the best men. And I don't want that to come off as disparaging, but I mean, like, what I've seen, because obviously I was, and I don't know about you, but I mean, I ran a lot of 800 meter races. It's like typically what 800 meter runners really struggle with, just for example, are the little things like from the break line running directly in a straight line, like from the break to the pole at the 200 meter point. And I got to say it, the guys have tended to do it a little bit better than the women over the years who love running. And as soon as they get to the break line, they sort of head straight to the pole and they curve in. And I watched this race today, and she just ran so perfectly from like lane 6 or 7 or wherever she was, in a dead straight line towards the 200 meter point. And I'm like, man, that is the first time I've ever seen an athlete in an elite women's 800 meter race do that. Yeah. And then just watching her throughout, she's so controlled. Like she really religiously sticks to the wave light pacing. She didn't get carried away. The pacer was just a little bit ahead, but she almost looked like she was short stepping, even though she could have gone with the pacemaker. She didn't. And I was just so incredibly impressed with her execution. And it's no surprise to me that she can run as well as she does. She's like the complete opposite of Mary Mora, who has got the worst tactics I've ever seen from almost any runner ever. And Keely is just absolutely bulletproof in that respect. Like she's better than the dudes right now. Like it's really good.
She's awesome.
154.75. She was 56.7 through the first lap, 125.4 at 200, and just never let up. And I think you're right. Maybe this pause has really helped her. And we'd talked earlier about the potential difficulties, obviously with the issues that Athing Mu has had with motivation after becoming the Olympic champion at such a young age, that maybe, were we concerned that Hodgkinson may be in the same kind of boat, right? She's climbed the mountain, so to speak, at also such a very young age, but then, it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything to worry about with her moving forward. And it's hard to imagine that anybody is going to beat her in Tokyo if she's in this kind of form first race up already. Yeah. And by the way, she now has 2 lifetime performances faster than Athing Mu's American record. So
crazy.
Yeah, pretty outstanding. And so the next one, men's 1500.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's sort of a sign of the times when a race of a 1500 race at a meet of this caliber doesn't go super quick. I thought it was it didn't obviously have any of the real big names there.
Yeah.
I thought Nagus ran well, but as you said when we were chatting earlier, but he should have mopped up there. So it's sort of maybe a sign of how much he's sort of off at the moment, that I said, he ran really well, but he should be able to put those guys away.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say though is the way he ran it. He's been leading a lot. He led a lot last year, led a lot this year. And, those guys in that mix, there's a lot of quality guys. The 1500's so deep at the moment. Ho's ran 3:29 this year, and I thought he ran okay. I don't think he's as fit as he was perhaps when he was running 142 flat, but we'll get to that in a moment. But the way that race was panned out, I thought he did everything he could have done in that race. He was never going to run really fast. He was never going to stomp them because he's not like a guy that possesses real vicious acceleration. So I think he did pretty much the best he could do, and he won. So I thought it was a good performance, and it's another Diamond League victory.
Yeah,
not easy to do. So it was I thought it was a good performance, very good performance.
It was such a bizarre race because they requested such a fast pace, right? 3:27.5, but I just wonder who out of the athletes actually requested that. Because certainly nobody was committed to going with the pace except for Ollie Hoare, ironically. I got to feel a bit sorry for Hoare too, because he sort of, I'm guessing, went into that race thinking, hey, the field, we've got this pace set up. I'm going to go out and, we get after the pacemaker as we've done for literally every single Diamond League race the last 3 years. The next thing he knows, he's on an island by himself behind these 2 pacemakers, with the pack going through, and they went through, the main pack went through 157, 158, which is absurd for a race of this level. And they were 254 at 1200. And we were chatting earlier, and I said that, Nagus obviously should win this race. He's the class of the race, and it was good that he did. And he didn't really have to do that much. he made one key move coming down with 200 to go because he basically ran on the rail the whole way, which was key. I think Nordis came up to challenge him on the outside, and I think as Yared went past Cam Myers, I think if Nordis had collapsed over the top of him, it could have been a bit messier in the final 200, but he did exactly the right thing. So I think that's a huge win for him, man, because obviously he needs to win in Zurich, a place where he's won before, to get through to the Worlds. And I think that, yeah, he needed to win that race today to assert, and you could see afterwards as well with his reaction that he was like, that was.
It might have given him the US trials. I mean, people, not just athletes in general, need a bit of a kick in the ass every now and then, and he's so awesome. He looks like a great dude. It's like he might have gone, Jesus, that's. Oh my God, I'm an Olympic medalist. I'm one of the fastest guys in history over the 1500 and the mile. And now I'm not even on my national team. And it might have gone home and gone, geez, I need to pull finger here because I'm just, not happy about this. And he had, like you said, he had that reaction where he looked like someone who's not just relieved, but excited to win, be back on the winner's podium. It should spur him on.
Yeah. And I think maybe as well what had happened to him, I think the field probably were planning on him taking up the pace. Yeah. I mean, that would be my assumption. But my gut feeling is that post-USAs, he maybe was just a little bit gun-shy or snake bit of go. I mean, actually, because that would have been two races, because he did the same thing in Prefontaine, right? He chased the pace really hard in Prefontaine, even though it wasn't catastrophic to him. He still got run down, and nobody, it's crazy. He still ran a good time, but nobody likes having these races where you're really just eating it in the last 100. Everybody likes to finish a race irrespective of the time, like feeling good and feeling like you had a little bit more. I just wonder if after the Prefontaine and the US champs, he was like, there's no way I'm going to go out here and pull everyone through in 151 and then get shot at in the final 100. Hey, the guy that I was super interested in today, and I know that this sort of, again, segues into this blockbuster new theory that we've got here that we can talk about briefly in a second, but I was super interested to see how Hoey ran today. Like just astronomical workload this season. Really interesting stat here. Since the beginning of the year, he has not gone more than 34 days without a race all year.
Wow.
And a lot of these races as well, I mean, they're high quality ones, right? That's first race of the year was a 214 kilometer. He ran 333 indoors. He ran 143.8 indoors, 143.3, all these incredible outdoor races. Even his prelim races are not really that, they're still good quality races. So this guy's just been absolutely going for it. But today there was a shot, I think from like a drone or like a different alternate like camera view with 150 to go, where he'd kind of been running wide and actually got sent this by his coach, Justin Rinaldi. Justin somehow found all the distances that these guys ran, right? Listen to this. So these are the top five in the race. And the Goose, 1,513 meters. Tim Chariot, 1508. Nordis, 1523. Ronald Chariot, 1503 meters. And Hoey ran 1,520 meters.
Wow.
So Hoey and Nordis did a lot of extra running today, which was quite interesting. But even so, they had this camera view, and once he'd kind of got around with 150 to go, I'm like, this guy's going to win, and he's going to prove this theory that I have or that we have true. But just, with 50 to 60 to go, I think someone came up on his shoulder, and he just tried to surge, and that kind of just like totally depleted the battery for him in this race. He just
Nordis is quite an odd chap, isn't he? Nordis is like a wizard or like a magician.
Yeah.
And when we were in a golf trip last year in Las Vegas, the boys went to see Copperfield, and he was no good at all. But I digress. But he's always popping up, and he's got that slightly sort of. It reminds me a little bit of Peter Elliott, the way he runs, that slight lean back, and he got the sort of two gun salute going, and he always pops up, and he'll like jump into a gap and take it on. But he usually just fizzles out these days. Where back in the day, he'd actually come on a bit more. But it's always fun when Nordas is in a race because they get all pumped up because he's a acolyte of the Ingebrigtsen, and there's that whole family rift there.
Exactly.
And it's sort of like, here comes Nordas, and he just
he's the anti-Ingebrigtsen, isn't he?
He is, and he's got that nasal strip that some of those Algerians and Moroccans back in the early 2000s.
And Galen Rupp.
And Galen Rupp.
Yeah. So anyway, Howie was one of the most interesting guys for me, and he's an absolute stud because he's just hit awesome workload this year. I mean, it's right up there with, I think, if he runs in, he's going to run Lausanne over 800 and then the Diamond League final, and who knows, that could be the end of the season. It might not be, but if it is, that's going to be, I think, his 21st race or 22nd race of the season. And that's up there with some of like these historic Ironman campaigns of guys like Andre Bucher and Wilfred Bungay, who just seem to run so many races. So, hey, anything else?
And both disappeared pretty quickly. Oh, no, Bungay was around for a long time.
Bungay was around for a bit. Yeah. Anything else from the meet today that jumped out at you before we go on to our next super exclusive blockbuster segment?
I don't think so. I think that's
all right. So, hey, doubling on just on the topic of Josh Hoey. I don't know. I got plenty of time these days, so I was, think about all these crazy things I'm running or just doing stuff. And I thought to myself, just out of the blue, maybe a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Josh Hoey may have a better chance to win the world 1500 meter title than the 800 title. And I thought to myself, when I thought it, that's ridiculous. Don't ever tell anyone that because they'll say you're stupid. But the more I thought, well, why do I think that? And I came up with this sort of theory that I know I passed by you. And it's basically that every single runner in any race, when you toe the line, you've got a pathway to victory, right? And sometimes what matters is like, are you better at executing your pathway to victory than everybody else who potentially has a similar one? Or do you actually have what I would call like a unique pathway to victory? And I just thought to myself, I'm like, over 800 meters, does Josh Hoey have a unique path? And I'm just using him as an example here. Does he have a unique pathway to winning over the 800 meters? He doesn't, right? His pathway to winning is the same path as Emmanuel Wanyoni, as Marco Arop, as all these other guys. So if he's going to win, for example, a world championship over 800 meters, if he was in that race, he has to rely on those guys getting it wrong on the day or him. Yeah, exactly, elevating. In the 1500 meters, though, he's got a really, really unique skill set. And I don't know if you've heard this one before, but there are only 4 men in history who have run under 3:30 for 1500 meters and under 1:43 for 800. So say
it again.
There are only 4 men in history. I'll see if you can name them. There are only 4 men in history that have run under 1:43 for 800 and 3:30 for 1500.
Okay, so Co's done it.
Co's done it, yeah.
Cram. Oh, 1 second. Yeah, Cram's done it.
Cram's done it.
Cram.
Josh Hoey's done it.
Josh Hoey's done it.
So you've got to pick one more guy.
One more guy. 1 second. I know who it is. It is. Give me 2 seconds.
Prove your worth as a.
It is the
venerable Doyen.
The guy from Djibouti. No. It's
not,
5 then.
Not quite. Has he? Are you sure?
Yeah, he's.
Maybe it is 5. I thought the only other guy was Taufik Makhloufi.
Oh, Makhloufi's done it. But who's the guy that was competing? He was coached by Arden.
Suleiman. Has he?
Or is he not? He's run under 3:30, hasn't he? Yeah.
I'm not sure if he has.
No, he's run like 3:28.8 or 3:29 low.
But
I thought he ran 42.8 or 9. Maybe not.
I'm not sure. We'll have to fact check. Anyway, The point remains, he has a very, very unique skill set. And so this sort of died away. But then the USA's happened, and obviously missed the team. And I thought to myself, after watching that 1500 final, I was like, would he have actually had a better chance of making the team in the 1500 than the 800, as absurd as that sounds? And one of my logics for that was, I looked at who won the 1500, right? And obviously that 1500 had to be run in a certain way for a guy like Jonah Koech to utilize the fact that he's a 143.3 800-meter runner and also a low 330 run in the 1500. But it did happen, right? And I just thought, if you had put Hoey in that race, does he actually finish inside the top 3? I mean, someone said to me that was crazy, but I'm not so sure that it is. I just think that
it's absolutely not crazy, because he's run 329.
Yeah,
he's a 142 flat guy. My reservation would be two things. One, does he have that? We've talked about it before. That kind of short speed or that explosiveness that isn't necessarily tantamount to being fast over 800, and vice versa. And the other thing too is, I suppose, conditioning is a separate point, because that's just your fitness. Like today, I thought he might win it or put a bit more pressure on for the win. But I agree with you. I think he's got. I mean, no one else in that field can run 142 flat. That's historically, like, what is it, top 15, top 12 performance, fastest performer of all time. And there's a history of people going up a distance. It's like sort of Venusni and Garbo, Oita. I know that's from the 15 to the 5. But yeah, absolutely, it's a good blueprint.
But even Jakob as well.
Yeah,
and
good point.
The thing is that Jakob's pathway in the 1500, number one, isn't unique. We'll talk about it in a second. But number two, it's a very difficult one to execute. In the 5,000 meters, one of the primary reasons for his success is that, like, his pathway to winning these races is very unique versus the rest of the field because of his 1500 meter speed.
So it's the same event, but just one event, 2 events up, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, when I look at that 1500 meters, right, I think you've got like a clear. I mean, if we just look at it now, kind of like the Mount Rushmore of the event right now, you've got Jakob, you've got Jared Naguse, you've got Kerr, and you've got Cole Hocker, right? And all to some degree, like, their pathways to winning these races are fairly similar, right? Like, those guys operate best. And I think Naguse and Jakob are the most similar out of those two, and Kerr and Hocker are the most similar if you were going to almost like subset that group. But the way that those guys operate best is if the pace is, solid from the beginning, right? For Jakob, obviously, we know the only way that he's winning these big races is what he can do in diamond leagues, which is execute sort of very, very even pace right from the start at a very high level. He pulls the field up close to his anaerobic threshold, but never quite over. And it's just a war of attrition that he's the strongest guy that then utilizes his power the best in the final 300. And where he struggled is whenever that pace has dropped off, right, it's allowed those other guys to recover just enough to where they can use their slightly better anaerobic capacity on him in the final stages of races. But here's the thing, like, if you got into a world final where all of a sudden we saw a race like we did this morning in Silesia, I just get the feeling that that's where, you're bringing into the mix maybe a guy like Niels Laros, and you're bringing into the mix a guy like Josh Hoey. And again, he probably does have more chance, I guess, to win the 800 because he's better than the 800, because the chances are that the 1500 final just has a really weird sort of race where it's like a quick opening first lap and then a really slow second lap and then a dawdling third lap are not high. But at the end of the day, would you rather be him with his unique skill set, or would you rather be a guy like, say, Isaac Nader, right, who's run 329.3? He's obviously a very good runner, but he doesn't have any uniqueness to his I'd say golden pathway or something like that.
I think as well, you've got to look, if you've got skill sets that overlap the two events, I'd say in this case the 800, 1500, and you've got to be looking to it, which is the stronger event of the two. So to make my point, say in the women's at the moment, Georgia Hunter Bell's got a difficult task to decide which event to run because she's probably still better over 1500, but man, the 1500 is tough at the moment, right? Whereas the 800, it's the second fastest time in the world this year was the lady who was second to Keeley today, and she was almost 2 full seconds back. And Georgia Hunter Bell has won Diamond Leagues this year in the 1500. It throws a bit of a spanner in the works to the extent that Keeley coming back and running that fast, but Georgia Hunter Bell would have known that anyway because we're in the same training group. That everyone knows roughly how you're going. So it's the opposite way round though for Hoey, and it's perhaps a little bit of teleological reasoning or post facto reasoning on our part where he didn't make the team. We go, could he have been better if he'd won the US trials and had continued to perform? So I think probably he's better just in his event, but I don't think it's so outlandish it could be dismissed as like the works of a raving loony. So I think it's a great discussion point.
Yeah,
it's not like these people go on Let's Run and go like Sydney McLaughlin should move up to the 1500.
Yeah. No, the classic was Jeremy Warner would be
Warner in the 800.
Warner would easily be able to run 140 for 800 because he would be able to cruise a 47 and then he's only going to run a 53. No, I mean, watching the race today, again, I was just about to like explode into orbit with delight when I saw him coming round with 150 to go, because I'm like, he's going to win this race and validate this theory perfectly, because this was a really weird race that nobody really picked him to win because everybody thought it was going to be this gangbusters, sub 329 race, right? I mean, that wouldn't be an unfair expectation. And then he almost pulled it, like he was in a position to pull it off. And honestly, I feel like if he hadn't been so like heavily raced this year, I feel like he could have won that race because like he just looked sluggish and
run an extra 20 meters, and he didn't look his condition didn't look quite as good at the nationals. But I think he could have. I don't think even though I think Nagus more ground that out than dominated that race.
Yeah. But anyway, so I think it'd be easy to say the fact that he didn't win the race today like blows that theory up, but I actually feel the other way around because I just feel like, I said this to Justin as well. I said I feel like he said to me that one of the things that Josh doesn't do well with is he doesn't understand why he can't win every race. He's like it's a positive thing sometimes, but also a difficult, maybe not so positive thing on the other side. And I said to him like, well, honestly, Justin, I really thought he could win that race. I thought that like Josh Hoey in July of this year, with that kind of form, would be able to do it. But
also, I mean, I was just thinking of Mo Farah in 2011. He lost to the guy what was the guy's name? He had a great name, Gillian. And he lost him in the 10, didn't he? And then Farah won the 5, and he went on that incredible run of global 5 and 10K titles. So I'm not saying for a second I think Josh Hoey's going to be the next Mo Farah of the middle distances, but it's a year of learning, and it's his first year as like a real gun. And him and his coach, so you seem to know a little bit, and just the people around him, it's his first year of experiencing all this. So it's not to be, not that you are or I am, but it's not to be condemned. It's all a brave new world for him, and coming out and even being in these races and jostling around, and how long he goes for this, in terms of the spacing between races and how he races. It's all like totally new stimuli for him. So he will have to go back to the drawing board. It's been an insane year. If you told him at the beginning of this year, this is going to be your year, okay, you're going to miss the world champs, bummer, but you're going to run 142 flat and be a prominent figure in almost every race that you compete in, hell yeah, he would have taken that. So it's awesome.
All right. There we go. Maybe not the blockbuster theory that it was advertised, but we're doing our best here on the stage.
Limited resources and limited imaginations.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so moving on, final topic for today. 12th of August, 1975. That was 30 years ago on Tuesday. Big J-Dubs, the Manurewa Express 349.4 in Gothenburg, Sweden. I mean, it's kind of like it's probably going to be like the last of the great barriers in the mile that gets broken, right? Like 4 was obviously huge, 350 was massive. I don't know if we're ever going to see, at least in our lifetimes, a sub 340. I was lucky enough.
I reckon we will. I reckon we'll in the
will?
rest time. In the rest time, yeah.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to place a
All they
bet?
need, well, I'll come over on my walking chair and be like shaking the hand. I was like, I want that $100, which is probably now worth about 5 cents in the 2070 inflated monetary.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I was lucky enough to actually run. I ran one time on Slothgatan, the track in Gothenburg. I ran 800 there back in like 2006, and it was pretty awesome because you walk into sort of like the club room at the end of the home straight, and there was this big shrine to Walker that was in there. So it was very cool as a New Zealander to actually go in and see that. I mean, yeah, where do you start on this one with Walker? I think probably maybe if we've got some stories about the man, the myth, the legend. The crazy thing is, and I know we've discussed this before, is that he kind of his era was just before guys like you and me as young kids in athletics, as young kids in New Zealand in athletics, were sort of coming through. So, he wasn't like a sports person that was prominent in our lives. It was more guys like Martin Crowe and Sean Fitzpatrick and John Kerr and these guys. Do you have any stories, or I mean, you were born and raised in Auckland, where John's from. Do you have any stories about Walker?
It's the usual, the one about like guys we used to run with about how his coach Arch Jelly got him to do 2 by a mile on Christmas Day, and he did the first one in 4 flat, and he told him to go put his jogging shoes on and go and have some Christmas turkey because that was enough for one day. And if you'd saw this course, I mean, it was probably the equivalent of running a 354 mile around there on Christmas Day. And there's other sort of apocryphal sort of training stories about Walker, how he would be he'd be injured or sick, and then he'd have a month off and he'd go run the Witex, and then he'd sort of, I remember my old coach told me that he came out and like ran the Witex and he was hopeless and like had to basically go home, and then he came back the next week and he was like superhuman again. And it reminds me of stories about like that cycling documentary with was it Eric Zabel and that Rolf Aldag character talking about how Jan Ulrich was different to everybody else. He said they were top pros, but it would take them months to get into the condition that someone like Jan Ulrich could get to in a week or two. So it was superhuman. But beyond that, he has largely kept to himself. He lives out south. He sadly has Parkinson's, and he sort of stayed sort of on the, I would say, fringe of public consciousness, and he's a big figure every Olympic cycle, and they'll quote him and all that. But I think it's, and I think that's cool because he was a big star, he had the big life, and now he's a family man. He just does John Walker things. He just lives his life.
He owns a saddle shop, right? Like he's big into the horses.
So I'm not sure. That was a few years ago. I heard anything about him, but I know he lived a very private life, and for a guy who'd been such a big star, obviously there was enough of that life for him, and he's lived his life. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I only met John Walker once, and it was in Lausanne of all places. So again, I was there in 2005, it was a year after Athens, and what had happened is that they'd got these guys to come over, all these legends of the circuit. So it was like Ovett was there, Coe was there, John Walker was there, Philbert Bay was there, and they brought them over. There was some kind of anniversary of the pro circuit, and all these guys were traveling around the events. And I was in the hotel in Lausanne, went and get some food, and I saw Walker over at the table with his wife, and I went over and said hello to him. And I was, I was growing up, but I was still pretty nervous because it was like, oh my God, that's like John Walker, this legendary miler from New Zealand. And I was kind of stoked that he actually knew who I was. He said, yeah, I saw you running in Athens, and that was good. You're going to move up to the 1500, just like classic old runner chat. But that's when I got to bump into Walker. I read his autobiography multiple times. I mean, going back to that night when he breaks 350, for that first time. I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? 1975, he does that 349.4. And talk a lot about this concept of like your career window for really running your best times. I think it's fair to say with Walker that kind of opened in 74 with that awesome performance at the Com Games. He didn't, it's crazy. There's just so much sort of dead space in between 1975 and 1982 when he ran 349.08, which is still the national record for New Zealand, a record that Willis, amazing athletes like Willis couldn't get. Sam Tanner's had a good shot at it. He hasn't been able to get it. Geordie Beamish had a really good shot at it, wasn't able to get it. It just makes you wonder, like, in today's environment, I know that we say this for a lot of the older guys, but just how much better Walker would have been with, access to product and just, different methods of training and management. And just, I mean, these guys were just awesome, eh?
He was awesome. And I think that I've watched it so many times on the big screen, that 82 Com Games when he was sort of yesterday's news in terms of the big three from UK. And he was running against that final number. If you go on YouTube and watch the heats, it's on there, the full heat semis and finals. He looks simply awesome. He looks like just from another planet when he accelerates at 120 to go in his semi-final. Cram looks similarly brilliant in his semi-final. But then in the final, as you and I have talked about, Jason, that race recently, the way Cram, I don't know if Cram, he looked imperious that day. When he came off that turn, he just looked like incredible. But Walker got impeded a bit by, was it Boyd? He got impeded a bit by
Boyd.
But the way he charged back, and I read about it in Walker's autobiography, I can't remember if he says he would have won it or not, but I know
he thinks he would have,
He thinks he would have. But, I mean, I think Cram was too good that day, my personal opinion. However, it would have been a Hiley versus Turgat 2000, because the way he charged back after being impeded.
Do you know what it reminds me a lot of? Is like the 04 final from Paris. And it's almost an identical move to when Hocker comes up behind Jakob that first time with about 80 to go, and he gets impeded. Well, what actually happens in this 82 race is that Boyd doesn't actually start moving over, and Walker says that in his autobiography. He's like, I fully expected that Boyd was going to do, because this is what the East Africans were starting to do. And he's like, it stitched me up because he didn't do it, and he has to do the massive. He has to do the massive like reverse out of the park maneuver, and then re-accelerate up the home straight. And that would have been the very thing that if Hocker hadn't had the patience in 04 and had to do that, he would have suffered the same fate and not won that race. But yeah, you're right. That Brisbane 82 was pretty awesome.
That was what, 7 years after the record?
Yeah.
6 years after.
And 6 after that.
And he was still awesome in that period. And I remember in his autobiography reading, or maybe it was an article I read by one of the New Zealand athletics journalists about one of the most amazing things they saw. And I believe this was late 80s or maybe even 1990. He went down to Mount Stout number 2, that cruddy sort of excuse of a stadium in Auckland. And apparently there were like 10,000 people there, or tens of thousands, like a huge amount of people, considering no one turns up to track these days. And he had a crack at his own mile record, and he ran like 350 point something. I believe it was like 350.9 or 350.7, or it was very fast anyway. And the thought, this is pre the sort of last 2 or 3 years where everything has gone haywire, but the thought of someone running 350 at Mount number 2, I mean, that's, even when Nick Willis has come back here and race, he's been awesome at times. I've seen him run. I see him run 336 up at North Harbour Bays, and I believe 2013 or 14. That was cool to watch.
Or the 352 mile versus Mottram and Wanganui.
That was awesome. But this is like, what, 25 years before then, or 27 years before then, and he's running on his own at Mount number 2. Like, it's crazy, crazy stuff. He was and I think, just to build on that, I read this slightly satirical piece about how not only was he the record holder first under 350, he had the big long locks, and he was from New Zealand with the black singlet, and he had that swashbuckling, some would say arrogant, but more sort of machismo presence on the track when, apologies in advance when he palms out there, but until hitherto the sort of middle distance runners had been your sort of Bannisters and your kind of slightly nerdy, bespectacled, like your Jack Lovelocks and all these sort of
Sydney
people.
Wooderson.
Yeah, and it wasn't really a sort of rock and roll sport, not that it ever has been, but he gave it a bit of panache and a bit of impact. And, he was a trailblazer as well for the modern era, the professional era, because he was very heavily involved in all that. So he's a legend of the sport, and 50 years, like what a cool milestone.
Yeah, to your point, it's so crazy when you go through his autobiography. You go through all that. He's got this massive list at the end of the book. It's just all of the mile races, and you see these random places like, Hut Wreck or something like that. It's like 354.8 for the mile, or the mile that you were talking about, like Mount Smart, just random. Like the volume of racing that he did, was just incredible. Like in 1970. So in 1976, the year when he won the Olympics, 35 documented races. And in the book, The Milers, I don't know who wrote it. Like there's something in there that he ran 50 races in 1976. But I found an article online where there were 35, which is just absolutely crazy, right? To think you would race that many times. So just a total man of steel. After that mile in 1975, the legendary beer bath celebration where they just filled the bathtub with beer. He was just soaking in beer after it. Like it was rock and roll. Like it brought rock and roll to track and field for the first time ever. And also, this is, as we're getting towards the end here, this quote from Walker is such a great one about the mile, because I know that you and I have discussed with respect to Mr. Ingebrigtsen, who for some reason seems more motivated to get the 1,500 meters than the mile. But this quote from Walker, right? He said, the 800 meter record, the records in the 1,000, the 1,500, the 5,000, the relays, no one remembers them. The mile they remember, only the mile. Like that's such an awesome such an awesome quote from Walker. And it leads me on to this question. Like, do you, like, in today's climate, obviously the mile, it does it still hold the same prestige as it does? Is it as an important record over 1,500 meters? Is it as an important record as the 1,500 meters? Is it more? Is it less? Like, what do you think?
I just think track doesn't hold as much prestige, and miles like a banner event in track, because track doesn't matter as much, and also because that barrier's gone.
Yeah,
I mean, for the woman, that was a bit of pipe dream, as we thought, but that we're simple we're simple creatures, and like the thought of a barrier, which proves like the marathon barrier, can humans break this barrier? Like it's a story that anyone with no prior knowledge of track can wrap their head around and get behind. So I just think track's lost its allure to the wider population. I think that's why.
Yeah. I don't know. My personal opinion is that I still think that the mile holds as much prestige as the mile record holds as much prestige as the 1,500 meter record.
Definitely do, but we are track nerds and diehards.
Yeah. No, I don't mean in the like maybe the global sense, because you're right, it just doesn't hold. It used to be a big deal. Like, when the mile record was broken, it would be in the New York Times, it'd be in the Daily Telegraph, it'd be all over the place. It was world news almost to some degree. But I just I've sort of been a bit frustrated, I guess, by the lack of like big time mile races outside of like because they have it every year. But even I'm thinking back to the late 90s, Al Rouge and Morcelli, there were a lot more miles in venues like Zurich and Brussels and Berlin, et cetera, where the guys were going after the fast times, and they just don't have them anymore. And I think one of the comments that I read from Jakob, this isn't a critique of him at all, is that he was just more interested in the 1,500 record. And I didn't understand that, because number one, I think you and I are both in agreement, not entirely sure whether he actually, it sounds crazy to say that he can't physically do it, but he can definitely break the mile record. Not entirely sure about the 1,500, and that would be a big part of his legacy.
It would be a big topic, but perhaps to tackle on another podcast is, why do they have both still? I mean, I don't know which one you'd run, maybe the mile. But it's kind of silly. It's like having the 800 meters and the the 880 yards still.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly.
I don't know, but at the same level, it is cool. It's it's 109 meters more. It's just got so much history. It's I don't know.
Yeah, but
Anyway.
I know, but it can create situations where someone like Jakob, who's the guy who could do out of anyone, both of them, is there's two to go for, and then one has been by the sort of whim of the day is being neglected almost entirely.
Sure,
but it doesn't matter. It's interesting, like you said.
No, right.
Before we wrap this up, just because I am the real track stats nerd out of the two of us. Well, put it this way, that's really all I bring to the table. You're the former track star, reliving your glory on this podcast. I was correct. Aina Suleiman, 3 minutes 29.58 in the 1500 according to Wikipedia, and 1 minute 42.97 in the
he just gets there.
Stuck
there you go.
there.
So five.
Yeah,
I stand corrected. Hey, and also on that topic, this was alerted to me by one of our 54 viewers of the first podcast. And hey, just so you know, we've managed to avoid a lawsuit here, Shane. Everything's good. We're going to be back.
That's
hopefully
good. We've exhausted our pro bono budget for this financial year.
Exactly. Cooper Lichtenhouse ran 142.27 and not 142.28. As I incorrectly said that he did last week, apparently. So,
massive apology will follow. Yeah,
massive apologies to Cooper. It was 142.27 and not 2.28. I'll never make that mistake again.
I'm glad we managed to cover that off.
One of the other pieces of feedback was that the podcast was too long, and I see that we've just busted through the 1 hour barrier again. So I guess we haven't taken that one on board, but we're doing our best. Hey, yeah. So hey, that was good, man. Wrapped up the second best meet of the year, Silesia. The blockbuster theory, maybe not. Anyway, I'm sticking to it. That's my opinion. And 30 years since the legendary Walker took down 350 for the mile. You got anything else?
Got nothing else.
All right. Hey, it was great as always, man. We made it. We're like Seinfeld. We got through the pilot, and we were renewed for a series.
By the skin of our teeth.
So yeah, who knows? Just quick one. Lausanne coming up in 4 days, so that'll be good for us because then awesome. we can discuss that one next week. And actually, on that topic, I know that you mentioned this earlier. We'll do this really quick. Could the World 800? Could this be the attempt or the challenge for the World 800 meter record? This will be the only event we talk about in Lausanne. You said it earlier on the Monaco meet. There was way too much hype around the record going down in Monaco. So the records never go down when there's all this hype. I feel like similar to last year. Right, Lausanne just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and of course, this was the race the infamous race where Marco Arop decided to pass the pacemaker after like 430 meters on the outside. He ends up in lane 3. Then he lets Wanyoni through 600 meters to go. Wanyoni runs 141.11. Ties Kita as the second fastest time ever run. I mean, could this be the race this year where these guys go really low?
It'd be awesome if it is, because then we have something to talk about next week.
Yeah, that's true.
Which means our chance is being renewed again. We only got renewed, I believe, for 4.5 episodes. I don't know where the half came from, but
yeah, that the farmer's check runs out after 4.5 episodes. All right, cool. So yeah, we've got Lausanne coming up, and I'm sure we'll find something else to natter about for 70 minutes, like we've just passed right now.
Very good.
Oh, and also, hey, another positive just before I go, we did actually get a legit mailbag question. It was about it's definitely one that has to be discussed on another pod. It's a very long topic. It was around super shoes, and what has more impact on performance? Is it actually in the marathon or on the roads, or is it on the track? And yeah, fortunately, I have a little bit of experience in that field. So we'll do that another time. But that was a legit mailbag question that came in from a viewer that was not made up by us. So that's good.
Oh, but the first one's made up.
No. No, they were real. No, okay. Hey, Shane, awesome, man. That was a great chat. Great to see you again. And yeah, we'll catch you back in a few days for the 3rd episode.
Thanks, mate.
All right, mate. Cheers.